Friends, I have 24 years experience in Phaco surgery. Still, complications do happen in my hands. With experience, complications may be less, but still it happens. This is a hard cataract NS grade 4 and it is a routine case. Let us see what happened and how I managed this case. Incisions made and now Capsulorhexis is being done with a utrata forceps. When the cataract is hard, a large rhexis is done. Size of this rhexis is about 5.75 millimeter. And now as I do hydro, see what happens. Suddenly the antechamber became deep, particularly on the left side. See in real speed. Still, it was not much noticeable if you blink. See in slow motion. As I do hydro, at this moment, the posterior capsule ruptures, the posterior capsule snaps. This is called snap sign, and the antechamber became deep. The nucleus still rotated, and I didn't notice, and I just proceeded with Phaco handpiece. Wanted to divide the nucleus by submarine jaw. The nucleus is still rotating, and I bury the teeth, go and divide the nucleus into two halves. But see what happens. I can't rotate the nucleus now, and the left side of the nucleus is sinking. I immediately come out. I know something has happened and I should not proceed with Phaco. If I proceed, the big nucleus will just drop into the vitreous cavity and it will be a very big surgery. If we can remove the nucleus by a large incision, large sclerocorneal tunnel, that will be a much safer option. So I inject some visco behind the nucleus and I ask my assistants to give me the instruments for doing SICS. And in this case, I am going to do my technique double SICS because the nucleus is really very big. And now peritomy is done, no cautery. I take a keratome and expose the sclera, and then I take a crescent blade and make this V-shaped incision. V-shaped incision is good. You don't go far behind. You just remain near the limbus. Still, it is dissection can be done very easily. We can hold the apex of this V-shaped incision and easily do the sclerocorneal tunnel. So we have to detect early. In this case, I should have detected when the posterior capsule just ruptured and the antechamber became deep. But I was a bit late. I detected when I divided the nucleus into two halves by first attempt, and the nucleus started sinking. So the sclerocorneal tunnel is done, and now I am going to lift this nucleus in the anterior chamber. As I do this, The nucleus almost sinks. I take a fish hook and remove one part of the nucleus, and then the other part also comes. So the nucleus has been delivered. And now my plan is to do a good anterior vitrectomy. I inject Cataract to delineate the vitreous strands. I find that vitreous strands has come out of the main wound. So I just use a scissor to cut the prolapsed vitreous. And now a suture is to be applied at the main wound because it is a big incision. A temporary suture has to be applied. All cataract surgeons must know anterior vitrectomy very well because complications is going to happen sometimes. Your ability to manage complications is what places you at a higher level of competence. That doesn't mean that you keep doing complications all the time, but it will happen sometimes, and we have to know how to do anti-vitrectomy. Sometimes we may have to do anti-vitrectomy through pars plana route, and we have to do that. By this time, suture has been applied at the apex of the V-shaped incision, and now I have asked for vitrectomy cutter. Always keep a new cutter in your operation theatre, 1 or 2 new cutters, because the old cutter which you have sterilized probably by ethylene oxide, ETO, may not work. So always keep a new cutter in your operation room. In such cases, we may have to wait for some time to get the instruments. Here, irrigation and aspiration. The bottle height is much less, about 30 centimeter, 30 to 40 centimeter, and the cutter is good in this case. It is cutting the vitreous strands very nicely, and there's a huge rent. This vitrectomy should be done through 2 side port incisions, but I manage sometimes through the main wound. And the main wound has been sutured at the middle, so it is working well. Now, lot of Cataract should not be used. Lot of Cataract, if you use, what will happen is it will settle over the macula and it will cause a raised IOP. So this is a side port at 8 o'clock. I am going to use these 2 side ports now for vitrectomy. I have to hook the vitreous strands at the incision sites and cut it very nicely. The cutter should go below the level of posterior capsule. It should go about 3 to 4 millimeters behind the capsule. Now see, irrigation is from 8 o'clock and I am hooking the vitreous strands which came out through the side port. Yes, now the anterior vitreous is free of vitreous strands. Antivitreous cavity is free of vitreous strands. And now we can use bimanual irrigation aspiration or Simcoe cannula or irrigation aspiration cut mode for this cortex. I am using this Simcoe, and this instrument works well in my hands. I managed to remove the cortex before it drops. I aspirate the cortex just where it is lying. I don't pull it much, because if I pull it at the center, it may drop to the vitreous cavity. Now I flush some bases towards the corneal endothelium, and whatever was sticking to the corneal endothelium has come out. Now I inject air, and now I am going to implant a multipiece intraocular lens in the sulcus. In this case, the lens I have in my stock is multipiece lens from Orolab. Johnson & Johnson's sensor multipiece intraocular lens has very short stock, so we have to keep this lens in stock, and it is very good. It is of very high quality, this Oro multipiece intraocular lens, and price is almost 2/3 of sensor multipiece intraocular lens. And now I am suturing the wound by interrupted sutures. This suture is on the left side, and then I place the sutures the knots are buried in the sclera. One more suture. If vitrectomy is done, we have to seal the wound very nicely. Whatever number of sutures is required, we should put. This is a bit of moxifloxacin. This is another 10O nylon suture. This 10O nylon is also from Orolab. So Orolab is doing so good work for service of humanity. Oro intraocular lenses are of very high quality. Abbasami's products are also very good, of very good quality. And now one more suture is being placed. Here, and this is a temporary. I am not going to put this suture because I am going to use this side for placement of intraocular lens. So I make a loop and bring this suture out. Injecting some visco all around, and this is the lens from Orolab. The lens goes straight because I have a big wound, no need of cartridge. The leading haptic has gone in the sulcus, and now I hold the haptic of the trailing haptic with a McPherson's forceps and place it. Try to place it in the sulcus, but it didn't go. Now it has gone by dialing. And see the centration of the lens. So nice centration. Inject air bubble, because if I inject visco, it will drop into the vitreous cavity. So the intraocular pressure, if we want a little high intraocular pressure, we take help of the air. To put this suture, I wanted some more intraocular pressure, and see the air, it is not distorted. If it is round and occupying the center of the cornea, it means the sutures are neither tight nor loose. You have optimum tightness of the suture. So in this case, I have put 4 sutures to the corneoscleral wound, and now the knots are buried in the sclera. And now I remove the air bubble. And we have to go again with cutter, because some vitreous, some visco has gone behind the intraocular lens. Irrigation, go behind the intraocular lens and use the cutter behind the intraocular lens for some time, maybe about 30 seconds, 30 to 40 seconds, and it becomes a very clean job. And the lens has been captured nicely. Onward time, Kenacort. This is pilocarpine. We can use pilocarpine and look for peaking of the pupillary margin. If any vitreous strands hooks the pupillary margin, there is a peaking of the pupil at that point. So this is another way of looking for vitreous strands. In this case, this is a releasable suture to oppose the conjunctiva to the limbus. Releasable sutures are very good. It is much better than using the welding technique, that is using bipolar wet field cautery to oppose the nucleus. There we burn the conjunctiva and we oppose the conjunctiva to the limbus. This releasable suture can be removed after 3 days. And now a little bit of kinocort is being used to have a final look if there is any vitreous strand, and it is not there. The pupil has come down, it is round and central. The antechamber is nicely formed and the case is concluded. Thank you very much for your attention. This patient did well in the postoperative period. On the first post-op day, intraocular pressure was high, but with medications it came down. On 7th post-op day, everything was normal, eye was quiet, and the patient got 6/9 vision with optical correction.